But my father and mother had done a lot of adventures all around the world, and they'd been in New Zealand, they'd worked and lived with the Maoris, they had a Model T Ford that they used to drive around in, and ride a horse everywhere. So they'd had an adventurous life. And then the war ended, and I went off back to school in Jersey, which had been liberated. And of course Jersey was a wonderful place for adventure. And the one thing that was just starting was underwater swimming. And there was two guys who inspired me. One was called Hans Haas, who was a great diver with a very beautiful wife, if I remember rightly. And the other one was Jacques Cousteau. And of course, we all as kids, one thing we wanted was an aqualung. And eventually a club was set up in Jersey, and they got hold of an aqualung so we could learn to dive. And then when I finished school, I got into the military. But you got a choice of which arm you wanted to go in, whether you wanted to go in the cavalry, the infantry, the engineers, the gunners, or whatever. And I chose the engineers. And my job was to find non-military activities for cadets to do all over the world, like collecting beetles, bugs, snakes, building schools, helping in clinics, helping people. And during their long vacations, we used to do that. Many things followed out of it. And from this, we then founded the Scientific Exploration Society, which was to bring together people of all nations who wanted to do something interesting and challenging. And by this time, we had a lot of international links around the world with not only armies, but with scientists and so on. And we took on a lot of tasks. Some of them, they usually had a mixture of adventure and science and conservation. I mean, for instance, the Darien Gap expedition wasn't just a question of getting cars through the Darien Gap in Panama and Colombia. It was a question of what you could do for the zoology, the biology, the fauna, the flora, and also the indigenous people who undoubtedly were going to be threatened by this road that's going to go through. One of the other big expeditions we did, as you probably know, was on the Congo, and that was later on looking into a terrible disease called onchocerciasis that had blinded about 20 million people through a worm that gets in the skin, gravitates to the back of the eye, and you go blind. And we'd taken in a large medical team of experts from all over the world to investigate this disease. And to get down the river, we'd used giant inflatable rafts that were pioneered on the Colorado River. And we had a mixed team of British and Americans who knew about whitewater rafting. And of course, by this time, we'd developed whitewater rafting from the days of the Blue Nile expedition. The publicity on this was pretty big, and we had a number of officers with us who were equerries to the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles. And he heard about the expedition from them, and he read about it in the papers. And so the next thing was, I got a call from him to say, would I come to see him? And he said, well, I've been most impressed with the fact that you took some young people. And we'd taken a young American from Colorado called Mark Smith. We'd taken two guys from Jersey. And when they came home, these boys went lecturing and talking to other schools and colleges and encouraging them and inspiring them to be pioneers themselves. So the prince said, you know, if you can do this with 2 or 3 guys, why can't you do it with 200 or 300? Operation Drake was born. We had the Eye of the Wind as our flagship. We went around the world. It took 2 years. The prince was so delighted with the thing, and with these 400 young people that we trained. He said, you can't stop now. Make it bigger. Oh, God. But they had to come from all backgrounds. We weren't just looking for rich children or privileged children. We wanted kids to come from the urban and inner city areas. So gradually this force built up, and we had 1,000 a year for 4 years, and we were just about to finish it and say, well, that's it, we've done it, the ship's come home, it's been a great success. But then all the sponsors started saying, hey, look, you can't stop now, you've got to keep going. So I retired, and I went on for a bit with them, and I help them now. But then I went and got stuck in with other expeditions involving the over 25s, or the wrinklies as they get called. And that's what I do today. I think that the whole thing is, everything I've ever done has really been a team of people. And I'm not like a mountaineer or someone who's become famous for climbing the first man to climb a particular peak or something. I feel what we've managed to do as a team is because we've acted as a team. And I mean, the Darien Gap was a typical example. You couldn't do that with one man. You had to do it with a lot of dedicated, slightly nutty guys who would carry it out. Same with the Congo, and same with the Blue Nile, and it was even more so with the Drake and Raleigh, and next week it'll probably be the same in Mongolia. I think the real essence of these things is to choose the right people, and I spend a lot of time on studying people, meeting them, getting a pretty good feel for what they're like, and regardless of their background, we had the best of the best. And even if they came from poor, humble homes, they could still best. And of course, you asked me earlier what sort of turned me on with exploration, and I always think back to the examples of Stanley and Livingstone, both of whom were very underprivileged children. And I think also, the other one I would say, learn to communicate. You know, the greatest attributes of leadership these days are the ability to be able to communicate and inspire, but do it in a manner that you can inspire people. Then you've got your team. You can inspire others. You can recruit all the others.